Tension erupts as Jacob Fatu storms backstage and comes face-to-face with Paul Heyman and Bron Breakker. You won't believe what went down. In this intense WWE backstage moment, the Samoan Werewolf Jacob Fatu delivers a chilling message that shakes the Bloodline drama to its core. After weeks of chaos and uncertainty, Fatu finally makes his presence known, confronting none other than the Wise Man Paul Heyman and the powerhouse Bron Breakker in a shocking confrontation that could change the future of WWE. Expect explosive dialogue, mind games, and a clear message: Jacob Fatu is done being silent. What if I told you that one of the most chilling confrontations in WWE's modern era didn't happen in the ring, under the bright lights, or in front of a roaring crowd, but in the shadowed silence of a backstage corridor? A confrontation so tense, so emotionally charged, that even Paul Heyman, the master manipulator himself, was left speechless. And standing at the center of this storm? None other than Jacob Fatu. This is not just another chapter in the Bloodline saga. This is a reckoning. For weeks, the air had been thick with unease. Roman Reigns, once the unshakable tribal chief, had fallen silent. Seth Rollins had been hospitalized. Solo Sikoa had seized power in the chaos, flanked by new blood like Bron Breakker. And through it all, Jacob Fatu, the Samoan Werewolf, watched. Waited. Brooding. Quiet. Until now. It was after the final segment of WWE Raw, long after the crowd had filed out and the arena had dimmed into a cold, cavernous quiet, that the storm finally broke. Security footage, grainy and rushed, captured the first flickers of movement. Jacob Fatu pacing like a caged animal just beyond the production curtain, fists clenched, eyes blazing. Every step felt calculated. Every breath carried weight. He wasn't dressed for war, not yet. No gear. No spotlight. Just a black hoodie, the hood shadowing his expression, and those piercing, unrelenting eyes. This wasn't a superstar arriving for his cue. This was a man hunting answers. Just down the corridor, Paul Heyman stood flanked by Bron Breakker, the powerhouse whose alliance with Solo had flipped the Bloodline hierarchy on its head. Heyman was mid-conversation with a producer, hands moving nervously, eyes darting as if sensing what was about to come. Braun, standing beside him like a living wall, wore that trademark smirk, arrogant, confident, untouchable. Then, silence. A cold silence that split the backstage hum in half. Jacob Fatu stepped into frame. The tension didn't build, it detonated. Heyman froze. That sly charisma, the wise man veneer, melted in an instant. His lips parted, perhaps to greet Jacob, perhaps to calm him. But no words came. Only the thud of Fatu's boots on concrete echoed. Braun stepped forward first. Of course he did. The self-proclaimed enforcer, the new face of intimidation. He tilted his head, cracked his neck, and offered a condescending smile. You lost, Fatu, he muttered, arms crossed like he owned the hallway. But Jacob didn't flinch. Didn't blink. He stared right through Breakker, past the muscle, straight into the soul of Paul Heyman. You think I don't know what this is? Fatu growled, his voice low, gravel-laced, barely more than a whisper. You think I've been sleeping? Heyman's mouth twitched. For the first time in years, the puppet master had no strings to pull. No champion to hide behind. No Roman. No Usos. Just him. And his creation. Jacob took a step closer. Braun blocked his path. Predictably, but Jacob didn't raise a hand. He didn't need to. I saw the way you looked at me, Paul, he continued, now pacing. Weeks ago. When Solo brought me in. You smiled, but your eyes told the truth. Heyman opened his mouth. Jacob, don't, Fatu snapped, and the hallway fell deathly still again. Don't lie to me. This wasn't about faction politics. This wasn't about titles. This was personal. You could feel it in the way Jacob's voice cracked on certain syllables. Like rage was trying to break free from restraint. This was about betrayal. About legacy. You want him, Jacob said, nodding at Braun, who stepped forward again. You want him to be the future. The next enforcer. The next champion. The next Samoan face of this empire. He stepped forward again, now chest to chest with Breakker. But he's not Bloodline. Braun didn't move. He just laughed under his breath. You're really still clinging to that name like it means something? Fatu didn't respond. He just stared. And then, with venom in his voice, he turned back to Heyman. You replaced me before I even spoke. You crowned a king while the Real Heir stood in silence. And now you're pretending like I'm supposed to follow? Heyman tried again. Jacob, please, I bled for this family, Jacob said, his voice shaking now, more with emotion than rage. While Solo built his little kingdom and Roman vanished, I was still loyal. I was quiet. But not anymore. There it was. The truth. Not shouted, but laid bare. And for a moment, even Bron Breakker looked uncertain. Heyman, eyes wide, lips trembling, finally stepped forward, breaking from behind Braun's shadow. His voice was soft, pleading. Jacob, it was never about replacing you. Jacob's head tilted. It was about protecting you. Silence again. Protecting him? From what? From Solo? From power? Or was this another lie? Jacob Fatu took one long breath, then leaned in until he was inches from Heyman's face. Next time, he whispered, don't speak for me. Don't choose for me. And don't hide behind your monsters. He turned to Braun. You want to prove something? Meet me in the ring. Then, without waiting for a reply, Jacob turned his back and walked off, leaving behind a stunned Paul Heyman and a furious Bron Breakker. But the silence that followed wasn't one of relief. It was the silence before war. Jacob Fatu had broken his silence. And in doing so, he had shattered the fragile order Heyman tried so desperately to build. Because when the Samoan werewolf finally bares his fangs, the pack listens. This confrontation wasn't just a personal reckoning. It was a declaration. The Bloodline civil war was no longer speculation. It was here. And Jacob Fatu had just fired the first shot. The arena lights were out. The broadcast had ended. But the war? It had only just begun. Backstage was in chaos. Security scrambled to intercept any fallout from Jacob Fatu's confrontation. Producers whispered behind clipboards. Executives looked down at their phones, watching the leaked footage spread like wildfire across Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok. Within minutes, the clip of Fatu staring down Paul Heyman and Bron Breakker had become one of the most talked about moments in WWE history. But the man at the center of it all? He was already gone. Jacob Fatu didn't wait for a response, didn't need a confirmation. He had said what needed to be said. His footsteps faded into the darkness as he disappeared into the parking lot, leaving behind more than just a stunned Heyman. He left behind a fractured kingdom. And the message was clear, the real Bloodline doesn't hide. It hunts. By the next morning, WWE's social media team was in full lockdown. Internal sources revealed that Paul Heyman had stormed into a private meeting with Triple H, visibly shaken, insisting that Jacob Fatu's actions had compromised the future of the brand. And Bron Breakker? He wasn't smiling anymore. He'd been pacing the locker room since dawn, replaying every second of the confrontation in his mind. He wasn't used to being challenged, not like this. But this wasn't just about pride. It was about identity. Bron Breakker might have the muscles, the pedigree, the push, but Jacob Fatu had the blood. The name. The scars to prove it. Later that week on Smackdown, fans packed the arena expecting a match. What they got instead was something far more explosive. The lights dimmed, and Paul Heyman walked out, not with his usual swagger, but with a cold determination that silenced even the rowdiest crowd. He clutched a microphone like it was a lifeline. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman. But the usual cheer didn't come. The fans were waiting. They wanted answers. I've been called many things, he continued. Manipulator. Strategist. Wise man. But tonight, I stand before you with something I never imagined I'd have to confront. He paused, looking down at the mat. Doubt. The crowd murmured. I doubted Jacob Fatu. I doubted the storm I helped create. And now, I may have to answer for it. Suddenly, music hit. Not solos. Not Braun's. Not Roman's. It was Jacob Fatu's. The crowd erupted. Not just for the spectacle, but for the sense that something real was about to happen. Jacob walked out slowly. No hoodie this time. Just a Samoan war necklace, a custom vest, and fire in his eyes. He entered the ring, stared directly at Heyman, and then looked past him. To the Titantron. A sudden video began to play. It was surveillance footage. Not the confrontation. Something else. Something older. Footage from months ago. Heyman, Solo Sikoa, and Bron Breakker meeting in a private training facility. No cameras. No press. Just Heyman gesturing. Planning. Rehearsing. And in the background? A list. A hit list. The arena gasped. This wasn't speculation. This wasn't paranoia. This was proof. The Bloodline under Solo's command had premeditated everything. The betrayal. The manipulation. The silencing of family. Back in the ring, Heyman stood frozen. His hand trembled. His face was pale. Jacob Fatu leaned into the mic. You picked your side, Paul, he growled. Now face the consequences. Before Heyman could respond, Bron Breakker charged the ring, blindsiding Fatu with a devastating clothesline. The crowd exploded in boos. But Fatu rose. Like a beast. Like the werewolf he'd been branded. A brawl erupted, fists flying, bodies crashing into ropes, the ring shaking with every impact. Officials swarmed the ring, but they couldn't stop the chaos. Then, the lights went out. For 5 seconds. Darkness. When they returned, Roman Reigns was standing on the ramp. No music. No Titantron. Just Roman. The tribal chief. Silent. Serious. Alone. The crowd lost its mind. Fatu froze mid-strike. Breakker turned toward the ramp. Heyman collapsed to the canvas in disbelief. Roman didn't move. He didn't need to. His presence alone shifted the entire gravity of the arena. After nearly 6 months of absence, Roman Reigns had returned. But his face showed no allegiance. No emotion. He stared at Jacob. Then at Braun. Then at Paul Heyman. And with one slow nod, he turned and walked backstage. No words. No orders. Just a storm warning. The screen cut to black. Smackdown ended without a closing match. Fans were left speechless. What did Roman mean by that nod? Whose side is he truly on? Was it a warning to Heyman? To Solo? To everyone? And most importantly, is the tribal chief back to reclaim his throne, or burn the empire he built to the ground? Because one thing is certain now. Jacob Fatu has broken the silence. And the bloodline? It's about to break too. It happened in the shadows, far from the ring, far from the cameras, far from the WWE Universe's roar. A meeting that wasn't supposed to happen. One no one knew to record. No script. No agents. Just silence, tension, and 2 men who once shared bloodlines, now divided by betrayal. Roman Reigns had returned. Not with pyro. Not with tribal ceremony. But with a stare. A single, soul-cutting stare that sent the entire locker room into a panic. And then he vanished. No one saw him leave the arena. No media appearances. No social posts. WWE issued a vague statement the next morning. Roman Reigns made an unscheduled appearance on Smackdown. No comment at this time. But while the public speculated, something far more dangerous was happening behind the scenes. Because that same night, hours after the camera stopped rolling, Roman Reigns waited inside a private suite at an undisclosed hotel, flanked by only one man, security veteran Jimmy Traynor, known to insiders as The Wall. No press. No WWE officials. Just a man who had once ruled everything, and now stood surrounded by nothing but silence. Until the knock came. 3 slow taps. Roman didn't move at first. He stared at the door. Jaw clenched. Mind racing. Then, let him in. The door opened. And there he was. Jacob Fatu. The werewolf. Unshaven. Sleepless. Seething with fury. But something else in his eyes, too: confusion. Doubt. Pain. He stepped in without a word. Roman didn't rise. Didn't extend a hand. He just gestured at the seat across from him. Jacob sat. Still no words. And for 2 full minutes, the room was dead silent. Finally, Roman broke it. "So you finally found your voice." Jacob didn't respond. Roman leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I saw what you did to Heyman," he said. "What you said. What you showed the world." He paused. "You think you're the first one he used?" Jacob's eyes sharpened. "I'm not you," he snapped. "No," Roman said. "You're not. You're angrier. Louder. More reckless." He stood now, walking slowly to the window, looking out at the city lights. "But you're also real. You care about the family. You care about truth. I lost that, a long time ago." Jacob tilted his head, skeptical. "So why now? Why show up and do nothing? Why not help me take them down?" Roman turned, and in that moment, the fire behind his eyes returned. "Because this isn't about helping you," he said. "This is about fixing what I broke." He walked toward Jacob now. "I made Solo. I gave Heyman power. I gave Braun permission. I watched them grow into something I no longer recognize. And I let them use you, just like they used me." A pause. "I wasn't ready to fight back until I saw you confront them. That changed everything." Jacob sat back, folding his arms. "So what are you saying?" Roman didn't blink. "I'm saying I'm ready to finish what I started." And then he said it, the words no one expected to hear. "I need your help." The room shifted. You could feel the gravity change. Jacob Fatu, the man who had spent his entire WWE tenure in the shadows, was now being asked by the tribal chief himself to join him in war. "You want me to join you?" Jacob asked. "After all this time?" "No," Roman replied. "I want you to stand beside me, until it's time to stand against me." A chilling silence. It wasn't a promise of loyalty. It was a deal with an expiration date. Roman wasn't looking for a sidekick. He was looking for a weapon. And Jacob Fatu? He was the nuclear option. "I'm not your enforcer," Jacob warned. "I'm not your USO. I'm not your pawn." "I know," Roman said, calmly. "That's why you're the only one I can trust." Another pause. And then Jacob stood. He extended his hand. Not in submission. Not in allegiance. But in temporary alliance. Roman took it. And with that silent handshake, a terrifying new force was born. Not the bloodline. Not a faction. A vendetta. Against Solo Sikoa. Against Heyman. Against Bron Breakker. Against the machine that turned family into weapons. Behind the scenes, plans began to move at lightning speed. Secret meetings. Travel plans. Camera blackouts. Roman and Jacob were rewriting the future of WWE from the shadows. And no one knew it. Except one person. Paul Heyman. Late that night, a surveillance camera in the hotel lobby captured him arriving, alone. Tired. Pale. Clutching a leather-bound folder with trembling hands. He approached the front desk, asked for a room under the name Joe Anoa'i. Denied. He tried another. Jacob Fatu. Again, denied. Heyman sat in the lobby for 3 hours, waiting. Watching. He knew something was happening. He just didn't know when it would strike. Or who would strike first. Because if Roman and Jacob had truly joined forces, then the bloodline wasn't safe. Not Solo. Not Braun. And not Paul Heyman. The clock had started ticking. And what happens when two apex predators, once rivals, now hunt the same prey? We're about to find out. Because this isn't about legacy anymore. This is personal. This is war. And it's only just begun. The next night, Solo Sikoa sat alone in his private locker room. Lights dimmed, door locked, fists clenched around the edges of his steel chair. No entourage. No cameras. No smirk. Just the suffocating weight of a truth he had refused to confront, until now. They were coming for him. Not the fans. Not management. Not the competition. Family. Roman Reigns, the man Solo betrayed to become the self-appointed head of the table, was no longer in hiding. And Jacob Fatu, the storm Solo tried to contain, had aligned with him. The message couldn't be clearer. A silent nod from Roman. A backstage reckoning from Fatu. A war that no longer whispered, but screamed. Solo had built his kingdom on dominance, manipulation, and fear. With Paul Heyman whispering in one ear and Bron Breakker enforcing his will with brute strength, he believed himself untouchable. But now? The cracks were beginning to show. He glanced at the flat screen across the room, which replayed footage from the leaked surveillance tape. Heyman and Braun watching, helpless, as Jacob walked away. Roman's silent arrival. His silent retreat. Solo rewound the footage. Again. And again. As if looking for something, anything, that might explain Roman's intentions. But there was nothing. Just that nod. That haunting, ambiguous nod. Was it a warning? A signal? A death sentence? There was a knock at the door. 3 quick taps. Solo stood. His shoulders tensed. His instincts surged. Come in. The door opened. Bron Breakker stepped in. Silent. Tense. Solo studied him. Braun didn't speak at first. He just nodded toward the monitor. They're not bluffing, Braun said finally. Fatu and Roman, they're real. This isn't a mind game. Solo didn't answer. Paul's panicking, Braun added. He's been trying to reach you all day. He thinks Roman's coming for him next. Solo turned. Let him panic. Braun blinked. What? Solo stepped closer. I don't care what Heyman thinks. I don't care who Roman's whispering to. I run this. Now. Not him. Not Jacob. And sure as hell not Roman Reigns. Braun crossed his arms, almost impressed. You sure about that? Solo nodded. Let them come. Let them talk in hotel rooms and shake hands in the dark. You think Roman has the stomach for war anymore? He sneered. He left. I didn't. Braun didn't flinch. But his voice dropped. He didn't leave. He watched. Silence. He watched you crown yourself. Watched you exile Jay. Watched you humiliate Jimmy. Watched Heyman hand over power like a coward. He saw everything. And he let it happen. Solo tilted his head. So? So, Braun said, stepping in closer, now he's done watching. Solo didn't speak. But the flicker of unease in his eyes said everything. It wasn't just about Roman reclaiming his seat at the table. It was about vengeance. And if Roman had Jacob Fatu, if the werewolf was really on his side, then the numbers, the strength, the blood, were shifting. Solo turned toward a large case in the corner of the room. He unzipped it slowly, revealing the Bloodline ceremonial necklace he had taken from Roman months earlier. The symbol of power. The crown of the empire. He stared at it. Then threw it back into the case. I don't need a necklace to be a leader, Solo muttered. Braun stepped closer. You might. If the people don't believe it anymore. Solo's glare sharpened. They will. Braun hesitated. And what if they don't? Solo took one long breath. Then I'll burn everything until they do. Meanwhile, Paul Heyman was sitting in the dark corner of a production truck outside the arena. Alone. Glasses off. Tie loosened. His hands trembled as he flipped through old scripts, old production sheets from the Bloodline's golden days. Trying to remember where it all went wrong. He once controlled the most dominant faction in WWE history. Now? He was a man on the run. Caught between the monster he created and the king he betrayed. His phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number, tick-tock, Paul. Family remembers. Heyman dropped the phone. He knew the voice. The phrasing. Jacob Fatu. Back in the locker room, Solo finally spoke again. We need to make a move. Braun narrowed his eyes. Tonight? Solo nodded. We hit them first. We don't wait. We don't respond. We send a message. Braun cracked his knuckles. You thinking Fatu? Solo shook his head. Roman. Braun blinked. Roman? We don't even know where he is. Solo looked him dead in the eyes. Then find him. At that moment, the lights in the arena flickered. Security radios buzzed. And in the rafters, hidden from the crowd's view, two shadows stood watching the chaos unfold. Roman Reigns. And Jacob Fatu. No words between them. Just the cold satisfaction of knowing. Solo had taken the bait. And the war? Was already underway. He thought he was the hunter. Bron Breakker walked through the backstage hallways of WWE Smackdown arena with purpose in every step, rage pulsing through his veins like electricity. The events of the past 24 hours had been a humiliation he couldn't tolerate. Jacob Fatu had made him look weak. Vulnerable. That wasn't something Bron Breakker ever allowed to happen, especially not in front of the world. He was the chosen one. The future. The muscle behind Solo Sikoa's rise to dominance. And yet, Jacob Fatu, a man who hadn't been in the WWE spotlight for more than a few weeks, had walked in and shifted the power dynamic with just his presence. No theatrics. No showmanship. Just raw, seething fury. And the worst part? Roman Reigns had backed him. That was the moment Braun knew he had to act. Solo had ordered a preemptive strike. But Braun wasn't about to wait for green lights or strategy meetings. He didn't need Heyman whispering plans in his ear or agents checking the legality of his next move. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a hunt. And Jacob Fatu was the target. Armed with that conviction, Braun stalked the backstage tunnels, his fists taped tight, boots pounding against the cold concrete. Camera crews scattered to avoid him. Security didn't dare intervene. No one wanted to stand in the way of the storm that was about to unleash. His target? The loading dock. That's where Fatu had been seen the night before, arriving late, leaving earlier than expected. Braun figured he'd come in quiet again tonight. Probably think he was invisible. Probably think he was in control. Braun smirked. Not tonight. He rounded the final corner toward the loading bay, where two semi-trucks sat parked, side by side, their trailers open but quiet. The overhead floodlight flickered, casting a yellow haze over the area. Braun stopped. No sign of Fatu. He looked around. Garbage bins, crates, pallets stacked high, a few folding tables pushed to the side. Empty. Too empty. He stepped forward, his senses sharp. And then he saw it. On one of the crates sat a black bandana, folded neatly, resting atop a folded leather vest. Fatu's. Braun's eyes narrowed. Was this a message? A warning? Or a trap? He stepped closer. Footsteps behind him. Too late. Before he could turn, a steel door to his left exploded open, and Jacob Fatu